Kamala Harris will now appear with her running mate Tim Walz at a rally in Pennsylvania later today. Let's bring in our political reporter Morgan McKay, who's been monitoring these develops that have still unfolding at this hour. We only have a little bit of information. We've all been waiting for this pick.
Yeah, Teresa, you know, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was sort of the dark horse in this race. It wasn't until late last week that he really became one of the front runners in this race. And already there is an outpouring of support from both progressive and moderate Democrats. So who is Walz? He is 60 years old, born in West Point, Nebraska. He moved to Minnesota in the 1990s and taught high school social studies and coached football. Walz served in the Army National Guard for 24 years before retiring, and then shortly after ran for Congress. He served 6 terms in the House of Representatives, where he was particularly focused on veteran issues. He was then elected as governor of Minnesota in 2018 and then re-elected in 2022. In Minnesota, he has eliminated nearly all of the state's abortion restrictions enacted by past Republicans, legalized the recreational use of marijuana, and provided free college tuition for low-income families. He also has spoken in length about his wife's 7-year IVF journey in order to have children, so he's been a huge supporter of fertility treatments. Republicans have insisted that Minnesota is up for grabs this year, with former President Donald Trump already campaigning there. But Minnesota hasn't elected a Republican to a statewide office since 2006, and the last time a GOP presidential candidate won Minnesota was in 1972 with President Richard Nixon. Democrats hope that by securing Walz, he will help influence voters not only in Minnesota, but also other parts of the Midwest like Wisconsin. Former Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney served with Walz in Congress. Here she is with more.
He's going to bring to the ticket the 3 M's, momentum, money, and message. He's got it all. And he's a great candidate, and more importantly, a great person, a father. He's married for many years to the same woman and devoted to her. I met his wife, and he's just and a veteran. He checks all the boxes of a great American person.
Now, Republicans are already jumping on Walz for what they say are his liberal policies, pointing to the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020 and his stance on protecting gender-affirming care for transgender youth.
You were telling me that you know people who live in Minnesota, and they really like this guy. So I guess the question is for everybody who doesn't know him, because we're going to start to get to know him now, what does he bring to the ticket?
Yeah, you know, from a lot of the people I've been talking to, he's just very approachable. He puts out funny videos on social media with his daughter. There's one viral that's going on right now. They're at the state fair and he's riding rides with his daughter. So, you know, he comes off as a very approachable person to a lot of people. And like I mentioned, I have a couple friends out in Minneapolis on both sides of the aisle, and they both had good things to say about him as a governor. But, you know, he really has this ability to pull in both the moderate and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, which I think is really needed right now for Democrats, because remember, it has only been 16 days since President Joe Biden has stepped down. So this has been, or stepped aside from the campaign. So this has been just a whirlwind of the past couple weeks, and the entire ticket has now changed. So Democrats right now, they're looking to come together at this point, and they're going to need to.
Kind of interesting that Kamala Harris said she didn't make the decision until this morning. She really wanted to sleep on it. Speaking of Harris, we were also talking about the fact that there's a new Siena College poll that's out. It shows Harris leading Trump here in New York, 53 to 39% among likely voters. So what are we attributing this to? Is this just all the hype of her being the new, sort of the new kid on the block for the ticket?
So as the pollster that I interviewed, Stephen Greenberg, he helped conduct this poll. He said, you know, polls are a snapshot in time. So right now, looking at this is exactly what Democrats wanted and what they were afraid of, having President Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, because they're starting to see this trickle-down effect. When it was Biden, he was only 8 points ahead of Trump in New York. And in a state like New York, that is really close for a Democratic candidate.
Too close. So
right now, they are just looking at this and some of the key demographics that I thought were really interesting. So 81% of black voters in this poll are now voting for Harris, compared to only 59% for Biden in June. That is a huge jump. And also independent voters. Biden, only 28% said they were going to vote for Biden, whereas 40% of independent voters say they would vote for Harris. So a huge jump, and right now congressional Democrats are hoping that will have a trickle-down effect.
We know you're going to be watching this. The fun's just begun in terms of gearing up for November. Morgan, thank you. Appreciate it.